Hello everyone, welcome to your yoga practice. Today's practice is going to be centered around spinal health. So World Spine Day falls in the month of October, and in honor of our spinal health, our practice today is going to focus on some mobilizing for the spine, some strengthening positions, and some stretching for the back. So let's start our practice today in a tabletop position, setting yourself up so that you are facing your short edge of the mat with your shoulders on top of your wrists and your hips are stacked on top of your knees. We'll start with a little bit of cat-cow. We'll be doing a few different variations of this posture today. We'll break this down a little bit. So on the inhale, you want to think about lifting your head, lifting your tailbone. And as you exhale, you're dropping that chin toward the chest and rounding through the spine. Moving with your breath. Your inhale opens up the front body, stretching through the front of the chest and throat. Exhale, rounding through the back body, stretching out the back and the back of the neck. Taking a few more breaths like this, moving with the pace of your own breath. Your inhales, the shoulder blades slide together, and on your exhales, your shoulder blades slide apart. Your inhales, the tailbone is pointing up toward the ceiling as you arch the low back. Your exhale, you're tucking that pelvis and pressing tailbone down toward the floor. Let's take one more breath here, just like this. Your next breath brings you back to your tabletop position. We're going to change this up a little bit. So we're focusing on some neuromobilization techniques today, or some nerve flossing. So for this exercise, we're going to inhale as you look up to the ceiling, slide back so that the bum comes toward the heels. And then as you exhale, we're rounding the spine forward, but let your hips sink down a little bit here. Chin comes toward the chest. It's like a sloppy push-up position. Inhale, you're pressing back, hips toward heels as you look up toward the ceiling. Exhale, moving the weight into the hands. Let the hips sink, drop the chin toward the chest. Let's do a couple more breaths like this. Inhale as you glide backwards, those nerve roots pulling down the back body. Exhale, you come forward, the nerve roots pulling up. And we'll do one more breath like this. Inhale, slides you backwards, gaze up, tailbone lift. Exhale, rounding the spine, hips sink, chin to chest. Back to your neutral tabletop position. From here, we're going to slide the knees a little bit further back. We're coming into a kneeling plank. So a little bit more engagement here in this position compared to our sloppy push-up that we were just in. Our alignment here, we want to have the crown of the head in line with the tailbone, in line with the knees. Your knees can either be close together or a little bit apart here. Keeping some engagement around the shoulder girdle so we're not sinking the chest here. Taking a full inhale breath where you are. And on your exhale, this time we're going to slide back toward a child's pose, head resting down toward the mat. Inhale brings you forward, back to that kneeling plank. Find the alignment that you just had. Exhale, sliding the body back, child's pose. Couple more breaths like this. Inhale forward, shoulders stack the wrists. Exhale, slides back, arms lengthen out. One more breath like this. Inhale takes you forward. And exhale brings you back. Little change here. We're going to inhale forward, come back to that kneeling plank, but this time let your hips sink low. And this time you're going to look up toward the ceiling, so you're in your upward facing dog. Now as you exhale, tuck that belly button toward the spine, core engagement as you slide back, child's pose. Inhale brings you forward, gaze lifts. We're stretching out the whole front body in this up dog. Exhale, sliding the body back. Let's do one more breath like this. Inhale brings you forward. And exhale brings you back. Let's come back to our tabletop position. So we've just moved through a series of flexion and extension. Now we're going to move into some lateral motion. So this is almost like a snake side to side motion. We're going to inhale at this neutral position. And as you exhale, look over your left shoulder. Your left hip swings toward you. Inhale brings you back through center. Exhale, looking over right shoulder this time, creating a C shape with the torso. Inhale through center, smooth movement here. Exhale, looking over the left. Inhale through center. Exhale over the right, exaggerating this motion. One more time each side. Inhale through center. Exhale over the left. Last time, inhale through center and exhale over to the right. Inhale brings you back to center. From here, we're going to come into a bit of stabilization with bird dog. So this is a strengthening exercise for our core muscles that are located on the back body. We'll start by finding this neutral tabletop, keeping the core engaged, keeping the torso in the same position as you lift your right leg behind you. You can check out some of my other videos for different variations on this, but your toes can be down on the floor. You can have the leg hovering or lifted higher. You can stay here, or your left arm can be extending out in front of you. I'm not going to hold this one for too long today. You'll just be here for one more inhale breath. And on the exhale, we drop this right leg down, but walk it across the body. So it's coming toward the left edge of your mat. Walk your hands over to the left side as well. We're recreating this side bend, this lateral motion that we just had. Looking over your left shoulder. So this is similar to what we just did with the spinal movement, but now we have our right leg extended behind us. So we get a little bit more of a stretch through the whole side body, including the outside of the hip, maybe down into the IT band. On your inhales, you might find you come out of the shape slightly. On your exhales, maybe there's a little bit more room for depth. Your next breath brings you back to center. Walk your hands back, walk your right leg back in. Find your neutral tabletop position. And we're going to move into this same sequence on the other side. So this time, your left leg is lifting behind you. Maybe the toes stay down on the floor. Maybe they're hovering or lifting higher, but the pelvis stays facing toward the ground. And then from here, it's your right arm maybe that lifts out in front of you this time. Keeping a long back of the neck, so your gaze is still looking at the ground, right around where your hands would be. Take one more inhale breath here in your bird dog. On the exhale, release the hand, release the left leg down, crossing it over the body, so bringing it toward the right side of the mat. Your hands walk over to that right side as well. And you're looking over that right shoulder as you let your weight shift toward the left. So really leaning into this C shape with the body, breathing space into that area between each rib here. Take one more inhale breath here. Exhale just a little bit more depth. Walk your hands back to center. Walk that leg back to center. And from here, we're going to come into the final motion that we can do with the spine, which is rotation. So we've done flexion and extension. We've done side bending. Now we're going to focus on rotation. So keeping your left hand where it is, we're going to inhale, reach the right fingertips up toward the ceiling as you open up that chest. Your exhale brings that hand back toward the floor. We're doing the same side here. So inhale, right fingertips lift, really pressing into the left hand here to stabilize. Exhale, fingertips touching back down toward the floor. Keep the pelvis where it is. Inhale, just the rib cage rotating, sternum faces the side of the room. And this time as you exhale, we're going to weave this right arm underneath the left. You're coming to rest down on the outside of that right shoulder, right side of the face rest down on the floor. Your hips stay stacking on top of the knees here for this thread the needle twist. Now your left hand might stay where it is, or you can also extend those fingertips toward the front edge of your mat, lengthening out your left arm. And then from here, imagine that someone has your hips and they're gently guiding the hips over toward the right, feeling a little bit more length down either side of the spine. Breathe into this twisted shape. Take one more breath here. If you have your left hand extended, walk it back in underneath the shoulder. Press yourself back to your tabletop. We'll move into the same sequence on the other side. This time we're rotating open toward the left. So the inhale, left fingertips lifting up toward the ceiling. Exhale, brushing fingertips back down to the floor. Another inhale here as you lift that arm, chest opens. Exhale to release. Using your muscles here to do the work of rotating. Inhale to lift. And exhale, this time weave your left arm underneath the right, resting onto the outside edge of your left shoulder, left side of the face, rest down. Maybe your right hand stays where it is, or you extend that right arm out in front of you. Breathing into your twisted shape here and enjoying this tractioning sensation along the spine. So you feel the weight of your upper body here rooted to the mat. At the same time, you're imagining that your hips are being guided backwards and slightly to the left, feeling that bidirectional pull on either side of the spine. From here, walking your right hand back underneath the shoulder, press yourself back up to your tabletop position. We're going to come into a little bit of core strength here. So from your tabletop, walk your legs out behind you into a full plank this time. We're taking the feet wide toward the edges of the mat. So you might choose to stay in your plank today. You can also choose to take this plank with the knees down if that's where you're working. If you'd like to add in some rotation, we're going to be moving from side plank back to this full plank. So from here, we inhale to lift the left fingertips, rotate onto the outside edge of the right foot, and exhale as a unit, we release that left hand down to the mat. Inhale, twisting the other way into your side plank, right fingertips lift. Exhale, slowly release that right hand down. Inhale to lift the left fingertips again. Exhale to release. And inhale, reach the right fingertips high. Exhale to release. From here, allow your right shin to come down to the mat. We're going to turn so that our right shin is parallel with the front edge of the mat. We're setting up for a gate pose. Your left leg will be extended, and your left foot is now parallel with the back edge of your mat, making sure that you're pressing the outside edge of that foot down toward the floor. Taking your right hand in line with your knee, in line with your foot that's rooted on the mat, reach your left fingertips up toward the ceiling. Enjoying this side body lengthening, this stretch along the left side body. You may choose to stay here, or you may reach your left fingertips overhead on an angle so that that left arm is in one line with your left leg. Palm faces down toward the floor. And this might be where you stay, or for a little bit of extra challenge, we can shift some weight into the right hand and the right knee as you float your left toes off of the mat. We want to think about keeping the toes facing toward the side as opposed to up to the ceiling. So we're keeping the outer part of the glute engaged here. Take one more breath in. And as you exhale, release your foot down, release your left hand down to the mat. We're going to turn to face the other way, coming into gate pose on the other side. So now your left shin is parallel with the top edge of your mat. Your right leg is fully extended, pressing outside edge of that right foot down toward the floor. Right fingertips lifting up toward the ceiling here, finding this stretch here first. Deciding if this feels good for you or if you'd like to progress it further or deeper. And if you would like to take this deeper, we're reaching that right arm overhead on an angle so it's in one line with the right leg. Palm is facing toward the floor. Staying here for the stretch or option, a little bit of strength, we shift more weight into the left hand as the right toes start to float up here. They can be hovering here today, or you can be lifting them higher. It doesn't really matter how high that leg lifts. We want to focus on keeping the pelvis in the same position, so not rotating it up toward the ceiling or down toward the floor. Take one more inhale breath here. On the exhale, release that leg down. Come back to your tabletop position. Coming into our final posture before Shavasana, we're moving into heart melting pose. So your hands are going to walk forward in front of you. We're aiming to have forehead come in contact with the floor. If that doesn't feel right for you today, you can also make use of a prop to bring the floor a little bit closer to you, but it is nice to have something to rest the forehead down onto. We're keeping the hips stacked here, lifted on top of the knees. So this is like that thread the needle twist that we did, but this time we're centered. We're aiming both armpits down toward the floor. And we're thinking about the hips drawing backwards in space. So again, the focus is on the traction element, this gentle pull in two directions with the spine. Unloading the discs, creating a little bit of movement that's kind of opposite to what we get with the effects of gravity throughout the day. You might choose to stay here. You can add in a lovely stretch for the triceps by bending your elbows, taking your palms to touch, and then bringing the hands toward the back of the neck. Take 2 more breaths here. Release your hands if you have them behind the head. Walk your hands underneath your shoulders. Press yourself up to that tabletop. And then turn yourself around so that you're making your way down onto your back here. And we'll come into our final Shavasana to close our practice today. You may choose to take Shavasana with your knees bent, your feet about mat distance apart, and your knees resting in toward one another. You may also choose to extend your legs long on the mat, allowing your toes to fall away from one another, making any final adjustments to your position to allow it to feel comfortable and supportive for you. And just noticing how it feels to be here in this stillness after we've just mobilized the spine. We've moved it through a variety of directions, providing some stretch and some strength. Now we're experiencing the weight of the body here on the earth, and the natural curves of the spine. So you'll notice the weight of your head here in contact with the floor. You'll notice the space behind the neck where we have a natural lordotic curve. You'll notice the contact of your mid-back, that space between the shoulder blades on the mat. You'll notice a little bit of a natural space in the low back, again, where we have that natural lumbar lordosis in the low back. And finally, you'll feel the weight of the pelvis here, the sacrum rooted on the floor. Take your last few breaths here, enjoying this sensation that's coursing through the body. Thank you so much for joining me in this practice today. I hope your back is feeling lovely. It's always nice to come back to these shorter, briefer practices that we can weave into our day. I hope I'll see you next time. Namaste.